In the meantime, we have, for instance, in Guyana, the United States government forcing, almost wanting to force regime change. We now have a situation where the Elections Commission itself, and you know, Guyana, you were there just before the elections, has said that there has been massive voter impersonation. And the chief elections officer is saying that the elections should be, are not credible. But we have external forces forcing the Elections Commission to go ahead and make that results final. Generally, as a principle of democracy, do you think it makes any sense for elections commissions to declare fraudulent results?
Well, first of all, Guyana must maintain its own sovereignty, because if your elections commission can be forced into a position by outsiders, that means that they are moving away from governing themselves, and that others outside of the nation then have the ability to govern Guyana. That should never be the case. And in order for there to be fair, free elections where the people of Guyana chooses its own leadership, the United States cannot in any way interfere in the GEOCOM process. And so, I am monitoring this very, very closely. And I can't wait to get back to Washington so that we are briefed on what it is that the State Department is actually doing, compare it with the information that we have received. And if need be, we will have to have a press conference. We will have to pass legislation to really, first of all, bring this to light, because we know what's at stake in Guyana right now. And it's not just the sovereignty of the nation, it's the wealth of the nation. And we have some corrupt, I call them pirates, governing the United States right now. And I am very concerned about undue influence of corporations and entities outside of Guyana determining the fate of the Guyanese people. That cannot happen. And I will encourage everyone, both here Guyanese Americans, to let your voices be known, because what I've shared with the Caribbean region in particular is the diaspora is the most powerful force that you have in the United States, because the United States dictates policies around the world, but you dictate who the leadership is in the United States. That's the other side to it. Case in point, a couple of years ago, Jamaica had actually gotten to a point with its economy during the recession in the United States where Jamaica was at a fiscal cliff. They had been going to the IMF, trying to hammer out a new sort of economic regime for the nation. And the IMF, which is funded by the United States to a large extent, was dragging their feet. It was Christmas Eve that myself, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, who was the ranking member at the time, we were in the minority at the time, Barbara Lee and Sheila Jackson Lee all went over to see Christine Lagarde. And we said, Jamaica has been here at the table negotiating in earnest. Why hasn't this deal gone through? And we want to see the terms of the agreement, because you're not going to make this nation lay off all of its public servants in order to meet your demand. We sat there with Christine Lagarde. She brought in her people. We looked at what Jamaica had put on the table. We heard what they had to say. And we just said to them, you're going to do right by Jamaica. And you're going to do it before the beginning of the year. This was Christmas Eve. So said, so done. We have the power to make a difference. But we have to recognize, we have to mature in our power, and everyone plays a part. If Guyanese Americans in the U.S. want to see the U.S. out of the elections in Guyana, you should be ringing the phones of the State Department. Pompeo should know you know what he's up to. You should be writing Speaker Nancy Pelosi, writing Chuck Schumer, CCing me on these letters so I can go into these offices and say, here's what my community demands. And I'm not voting on this, this, and this. And here are my colleagues that stand with me. That's how power works. Yes. We have to get to that level of maturity.
Two final questions, one in Ghana and one in here in the United States. You were in the city council. You helped fight for the release of Mark Benchclub. It's funny.
That's right.
Right?
That's
you helped
right.
fight for the release of Mark Benchclub.
I remember that. That's right.
And along with Mark, several hundred young Black men were just killed. And the United States government started to have sanctions on the government, the previous government of Guyana, but nothing has happened. There has been no justice. Now with this worldwide movement of fighting for justice for young Black men that were killed by law enforcement and other state actors, how can the United States Congress help the Guyanese people get justice for these hundreds of young men so that we can begin to have reconciliation?
Well, first of all, there needs to be a movement within the Guyanese American community that comes to Washington to share the stories, to bring the evidence. I can tell you, when I'm in Washington, I hear from the Turkish American community, I hear from the Jewish community, I hear from every other nation where they want to impress upon the United States a change. Taiwan, right? Why hasn't the Guyanese American community come to the US to talk about, come to the United States Congress to talk about the human rights violations that took place? Bring the pictures, bring the information, sit down with members. I have a caucus. I can convene over 70 members.
It's going to be done.
Now,
it's going to be done.
And listen to the stories. I can tell the story, but to get it firsthand from Guyanese American who hold the vote in the United States, it's a whole nother story. So these are the types of things that we have to sacrifice to do, because nothing is stronger than the lived experiences of those who are directly impacted. And every Guyanese American has family back home who can tell the story, who can give the video, who can, you see what I'm saying? And
yes.
I can share that with colleagues, but when I have my constituents come up and I'm introducing them to members of Congress, my colleagues know we mean business.